All right, welcome to the Salt City Hoops live postcast. We got some stuff to talk about here. Let's get live with all our channels here. Welcome to another thrilling loss, as the Jazz have been so good at doing over the past few games here. I think this is now the fifth loss in a row for the Jazz. As I quickly pull up their schedule to see how many losses has this been for the Jazz over the past few games. The Jazz dipped below 500 before the last time we did a postcast. This is their fifth straight loss, correct? They're at Houston on Thursday. Hopefully they get off the pine against that one. The last time we were here was for the Kings' 1-point loss in Sacramento on Friday night. And I didn't have to change the graphic. I do have to change the score, though. I have the score wrong on here. Let me change that one. I do have the correct winning team with the Kings getting another narrow victory over the Jazz. Again, same kind of thing where the Kings have the lead throughout most of the game. The Jazz bring it into a tight game in the second half. And the Jazz take a brief lead in the fourth quarter, but they can't get the job done. They can't pull away, and then Sacramento ends up getting the win in the fourth quarter. So let's get the score correct as I edit that now. Let's see, is that right? That should be right. Okay. Correct score on the screen. All right, we're all happy about having the correct score to talk about the Jazz here. So, now we got all our channels activated. We got the score correct on the screen. Allow me to reintroduce myself. Mark Pereira, Salt City Hoops. Happy to be here for the Salt City Hoops live postcast that we do all the time to talk about the Jazz immediately after the game is over, and to talk about and have a beer and complain about things, especially when they lose 5 in a row. However, if you're on the tank bandwagon, you're probably not too upset about these close losses. However, the motto for this postcast will never change. The wins and losses don't matter for this season, and that always gets ascribed to the wins. When a team says that, the wins don't matter, but the losses don't matter either for this team. We're going to need some wild lottery luck to secure a top 2 pick this year, and statistically there just isn't that much difference in lottery odds and actual NBA draft pick outcome as far as quality of player between the 5th pick and the 12th pick and such. So we're just rooting for good basketball. We'll have a good time. And so, I frankly would like to have a win to celebrate at the end of the day. But unfortunately, we still get thrilling losses in their place. As I mentioned, the Kings led the game throughout most of the game today. As I take a look at the game charts here, the Jazz did hold an early 14-12 lead, but the Kings totally pulled away in the first quarter. They ended up holding a 14-point lead throughout the first quarter and held a lead for the entire third quarter. The Jazz had a brief tie in the third quarter, and then the Jazz take a quick lead early in the fourth quarter with Domantas Sabonis on the bench, who was, again, fantastic for the Kings. We'll get to him in a moment. And then a little bit of back and forth in the early fourth quarter, followed by the Kings just pulling away with constant 5 to 7 point leads. The Jazz end up tying the game, though, at the very end with about 3-4 seconds left to play. Lauri Markkanen attempts a 3. He gets fouled on the 3-point attempt, or at least the official said he did. On replay, it looked like a very, very dubious foul call on that 3. The Kings had already used up their one challenge of the evening, challenging Sabonis' 5th foul in the fourth quarter. Not his foul-out foul, but just a 5th foul on a pretty obvious blocking call on Sabonis against Markkanen. So they didn't have a challenge to contest the dubious 3-point shot foul. However, you put Lauri Markkanen to the line. He drains all 3 free throws. It's now a tie game. going into the hands of De'Aaron Fox, who ends up scoring 22 points in the fourth quarter, including the game-winning layup, driving past Lauri Markkanen very, very, very easily. That was drawn off the switch. So happy for Lauri Markkanen, hit those 3 free throws to tie the game. We've had some weird free throw luck in the fourth quarter the past few weeks. So it was good to see those free throws. 15 and 15 from the free throw line. I'm going to talk about Lauri Markkanen's foul drawing in a moment. I think he's been really good from there, but I'll get to him. The very end of the game, there was 0.4 of a second left at the buzzer here, and Jared Vanderbilt throws a 75 3/4 court pass to Lauri Markkanen, who took just about a beat too late in his step in getting a shot up, and Lauri Markkanen's long, high-arcing 2-point shot to tie the game was about a tenth too late. So the Jazz do not get the tying shot from Lauri Markkanen, but it was a fabulous attempt, and we had a lot of fun watching it and hoping that went in. Unfortunately, that did not come to pass. So the Jazz lose 117-115. These last 5 losses, guys. Spurs lose 126-122. Warriors 112-107. Kings 126-125. Heat 126-123 on the Tyler Hero buzzer beating win, and then here against the Kings, not quite a buzzer beater from De'Aaron Fox, but pretty damn close to it. Now, this is the Salt City Hoops Live postcast and beer. I'd be remiss not to drink this beer that I have in front of you and actually take a sip of it. This one is a 6.7%er. Not my heaviest one, but a pretty good one. It's a winter warmer from Woods Boss Brewing Company here in Colorado. They call it Woods Boss Brewing Company because the proprietor is also an accomplished large format woodworker, and there's a lot of good stuff in the brewery there. And this is just a classic good winter ale that just has a lot of spices and has a little bit of citrus flavor to the ale, so we're really having some fun with this one. A mild beer for your Tuesday evening. So I got my Donovan Mitchell shirt on today, celebrating his 71-point game yesterday. That was wild. I unfortunately did not get to see that. I would love to catch some more of that when I get a free moment. Did not have time yesterday. I'm so happy for Donovan shooting 71 points. We've seen what he can do, and I think the more impressive thing is he's adding the 9 assists on top of that. That was a lot of fun. So, tonight's game. Well, there are some players I want to talk about and some players I super don't. So, I should start out by saying that I don't think this game actually gets in the Jazz's favor without the Kings committing 9 turnovers in the third quarter. The Kings end up committing 17 turnovers overall, There were some real ghastly turnovers towards in the third quarter for the Kings that were really just, they're not the throwing the ball over the gym type of thing. They're more like weird turnovers, losing the ball out of the grip of their hands, like some very unusual turnovers there, including by De'Aaron Fox, especially in the third quarter. But they more than make up for it because the Kings' 2 star players were just absolutely fabulous today. Although it was a tale of 2 different styles of player, as far as like the stories of the game for each of these guys. You have Domantas Sabonis, who goes 8 of 3 from the field, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He was not quite as dominant as he was the other night in Utah, but that's because De'Aaron Fox had it going on. He goes 37 points, 15 of 22 from the field, including, like I said, a wild 22-point fourth quarter, 1 of 5 from 3, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, 6 assists, 4 turnovers. But to talk about Sabonis real quick, at the outset, Sabonis was just absolutely eating early. When he saw Walker Kessler in the game, his eyes lit up and just wanted to take that rook to the league. And he absolutely succeeded in doing so. And so Domantas Sabonis, his plus-minus ends up plus 21 because he was a big part of the Kings establishing that 14-point first quarter lead, as he just was a dominant interior presence late. Now, he's on the bench for most of the Jazz comeback in the third quarter, fourth quarter bridge there, where the Jazz actually finally took a lead, whereas De'Aaron Fox was on the court. And so De'Aaron Fox ends up finishing a -6, but obviously De'Aaron Fox is a huge reason for that first quarter spurt and the fourth quarter finish. So even though you have Sabonis a +21 and Fox a -6, they're both just equally important to how this team succeeded and eventually got the win. And De'Aaron Fox was not faultless, but like you have a fourth quarter like that, that's bring your team to victory. You don't have to rely on Sabonis the entire way, who you had the Jazz not playing Vanderbilt or Kessler in the fourth quarter for a little stretch to try to draw Sabonis out and try to get a little bit more offensive juice, which actually did work for a bit. But at the end of the day, it was just De'Aaron Fox taking whoever his defender was to the rack, to the mid-range. He exploited absolutely everybody who was guarding him. Mike Conley was completely hapless against De'Aaron Fox pretty much all day today, guarding him. Malik Beasley was a non-factor guarding De'Aaron Fox. Jordan Clarkson did Jordan Clarkson things, was pretty much a non-factor. You had a little bit of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who provided some pressure and on-ball pressure, but as soon as you set a screen on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's going to die on that screen a lot, or at least he did today. I think Sabonis' screens were pretty good today. I think Alexander-Walker has been better at fighting through those screens today, but he's just a guy who makes a guy work hard. He's not a guy who's actually going to affect shots. He fouls a lot, but in general, this was... When a starting guard for an opponent goes off as much as they do, the fault lies within the primary defenders there, right? Like, let's say Alexander Walker did a miserable job. He's not going to be the reason you lose the game. It's because Conley, Clarkson, and Beasley just could not provide much defense. And towards the end of the game, the Jazz tried to put Vanderbilt on De'Aaron Fox towards the end of the game, but the Jazz were switching every action. And I don't mind switching every action, but I really do mind it when you're putting out a designated defender on a guy and say, we're going to switch up our defensive coverage, and then provide no resistance to switching, right? So, like, at the slightest hint of a screen, we're going to switch whoever's guarding the desired defender. We're going to switch him onto Vanderbilt and have a Malik Beasley or have a Jordan Clarkson guarding the ball handler, right? And so I think you need to fight that a little bit more and force De'Aaron Fox to make a decision as Jared Vanderbilt is fighting through that screen. Have your help. Force Fox to make a pass and ping it around to get a better look, because that type of smart rotational defense, which the Jazz are capable of. They don't have great just physical presences and good shot blockers, and but they're a bunch of smart dudes. Like when I look at Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk and Mike Conley, these guys tend to make the right decision rotationally. So I would have rather forced Fox to make more educated decisions about where he needed to pass the ball. Instead, he just gets a weak defender on him, right? Because Vanderbilt was screened off towards the end of the game. And so he's just going to the rack or going to the mid-range. De'Aaron Fox was fabulous from the mid-range today, absolutely draining those shots pretty frequently. And at the end of the game, he actually drew a switch of Lauri Markkanen onto him. And I was actually pretty encouraged by that, because my argument when you have these smaller players defending a guy like De'Aaron Fox who are failing in their task of guarding De'Aaron Fox, the best thing you can do is just throw random length at him, right? We've seen time and time again where Rudy Gobert, who is a fabulous perimeter defender, to be clear, you have guards get by him fairly easily and have like a little bit overconfident in going to the rim and get it swatted pretty easily. Now, Gobert is a fabulous generational defender. I'm not saying that would happen if you do the same thing to Kelly Olynyk, but I do prefer saying, okay, if Mike Conley can't defend De'Aaron Fox, how about putting somebody where, okay, if he's going to be just the same amount of behind the play as Conley is, if it's Kelly Olynyk, can he just kind of force Fox into a tough physical decision where yeah, I know I got a 7-footer behind me. I gotta put this ball against the glass in a way that I might not be overly comfortable with. So I liked having Lauri Markkanen on there in the last shot. And boy, Fox made me look silly though. Fox completely blew by Markkanen by about 5-6 feet and got a wide open layup at the rim, leading which led to the that's a game winning layup, right? Like that's. The help defense was not sufficient on that. It wasn't just like a tap in birdie type of layup. I do believe there was a mild contest there towards the end, but it was not. It was not a difficult layup attempt for De'Aaron Fox. Let me put it that way. At least in his profile, right? Like for other players, it might have been tough, but all he had to do was just put it off the glass nice and soft, and he was totally fine. So the defense in last position, not super thrilled. Excuse me as I take another sip of this beer here. Welcome to the Salt City Hoops Postcast. Happy to have you. Let's see, who else should we talk about today? I mentioned De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Let me talk a little bit more about Sabonis. 21-14, 8 assists today, by the way. Sabonis was absolutely controlling the ball in the break as well. Just a really, really nice pair of performances from Sabonis against the Jazz, who just do not have any interior defensive presence against a player that skilled. Walker Kessler had a nice defensive rating on Friday. Overall, I think a lot of that was buoyed by the fact that he completely outclasses Richaun Holmes, which is nice to see. But today, Domantas Sabonis, same thing as the other night, right? On Friday night, you have Walker Kessler's going to finish with 3 fouls. So you're going to say, what's the problem? He didn't have that many fouls. He picks up those 3 fouls on just Sabonis just taking him into the paint and deciding, I'm going to score on Walker Kessler. Kessler did not provide much defensive input against Sabonis, but Kessler is very good against driving ball handlers, such as Fox. He had a nice block against Fox, I believe, one time today. He had 1 block, 3 fouls today. Those 3 fouls were all against Sabonis, right? And he just could not battle him. You saw Sabonis just, his eyes went real wide when he decided that he wanted to take Kessler to the rack. I thought Sabonis could have done that more in the fourth quarter during a stretch when he had Kessler in there. But Fox had it going so well that Sabonis just kind of used his other gravity to sort of like maybe draw Kessler away from guarding the rim as much as he could. Sabonis also was had a couple times where he was doing the old marching Gortat screen where you have the ball handler going to the rim and Sabonis is like kind of hip checking Walker Kessler away from having a good contest on the ball handler. So I thought that was nice. I say it was nice. It was against the Jazz. I like basketball. It was a nifty little play to help kind of shove off a rookie paint defender from his comfortable spots, which I thought was pretty cool. Just as like Kessler's got to get better at that, right? So I just thought that the Kessler-Sabonis matchup has been so poor for Kessler, and if we do want to take a look at see if the total defensive rating is available, I do think Kessler overall had a decent game in his 17 minutes defensively. Yeah, sure enough, he's a 92 defensive rating, which is just absolutely incredible for a rookie big man. 82 offensive rating, which is the worst on the team today. So he was a negative 10 net rating today. But I think the 92 defensive rating, especially Walker Kessler was on the court during the big Jazz run in the fourth quarter with Sabonis off the court. So I think that Kessler can absolutely compete as a starter level big man, but he just is going to struggle against guys like Sabonis and guys of his ilk. So enough talking about the Kings today. We can talk about the actual Jazzmen. Probably the surprising players you want to talk about, right? So we have Jared Vanderbilt having a nice game by his standards. He finishes a plus-minus of 2 today in a 2-point loss. So overall good game from him. We're talking 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. He led the break a couple times, and that's going to be a big thing for him, is how he gets in the action. And he had a nice scooping left-handed layup over Sabonis today. I think that demonstrates like some more advanced finishing today. He did have a couple biffed finishes at the rim that a better big man should be able to finish of someone of his caliber, but I did think that lefty scooping layup on the break was really nice. It wasn't even fully on the break. It was kind of in a semi-transition point, and Vanderbilt's just dribbling the ball with his left hand the whole way from when he secured the defensive rebound. 5 offensive rebounds today for Vanderbilt, 7-12 from the field, 0-1 from 3, so we want to say 7-11 from 2, which is his main range. He had, some of the attempts were a little weird, though. He did have a couple very much not at the rim attempts, and he had one reverse layup attempt that totally was offline, but he secured his own offensive rebound and got the putback, so very unusual game for him. Lauri Markkanen only 6 of 15 from the field today, but you had 15 of 15 from the free throw line. You end up with an effective field goal percentage of very, very good today. Only 1 of 7 from 3 today. But again, 15 free throws and going perfect from the line. That's exactly what you want out of your star players. Get to the line. And that's something I should talk about as a primary point, because I mentioned at the top of the broadcast that I do think his free throw attempts per game have been just going up and up and up over the games. So if I wanted to look at that real quick, I just want to mention his free throws per game here real quick from game to game. Where's my game log? Can't find his. This is always a frustrating thing. I have to go to Yahoo for my favorite split stats. Lauri Markkanen. His free throws have just gone up and up and up over the past month, which has just been really, really nice to see. And that's straight up star player stuff, right? So 15 free throws today, 12 free throws against Miami, only 3 free throws against Sacramento, but 16-24 from the field. 3 free throws against Golden State, then 13 free throws against San Antonio. His split stats over the past month, if we want to say December, 6 free throws a game, and as I mentioned, if he can regularly kind of tap into that double-digit free throw attempts, if he can get at 7, 8, 9 free throw attempts would be a little nuts, but 7, 8 free throw attempts would be really nice. And like I mentioned, the past few games has been really great from the free throw line. You know, only 3 of 3 on Friday night, but you go 16-24 from the field. Other things are likely working for you, and he was only 1 of 7 from 3 that night, so it was just a great, efficient night for Lauri Markkanen in both of these Kings games. He's not the reason we lost. I thought his defense was fine until that last possession against De'Aaron Fox, which you can't really expect too much in that particular possession. And again, he's never going to be the reason we lose the game, right? He's -6 in a 2-point loss. Lauri Markkanen is just, he's going to do what he does. 20 points, 8 rebounds. I think his passing vision is a little limited, right? But in this environment where he is the best, he's the best finisher on the team, you don't mind him just finishing the possessions where he decides he has an advantage, right? He's a low turnover guy, he's a low assist guy, but he's not making poor decisions with the basketball, right? That's what you're looking for out of these guys with very, very few assists, is like, all right, are you making bad decisions with the ball? And with Markkanen, that's just never the case. Mike Conley had his highest scoring night of the season, 18 points, 7 assists, 3 steals. Really sucks to get 33 minutes out of Mike Conley, have his highest scoring night of the season, and still lose the game. His defense was quite miserable today, and just losing guys on back cuts, offering zero resistance against guys like De'Aaron Fox, although he did have a couple fouls called on Conley that I thought were questionable, and Conley himself was getting fouled and not getting called. Conley was an absolute bulldog today. Offensively, I really liked watching him play. 2 of 4 from 3 today. Jordan Clarkson was a little bit of a funny watch today. We're going to open the newspaper tomorrow morning, look at the box score, and see 24 points, 5 of 10 from 3, 9 of 17 overall, so 4 of 7 from 2, 1 free throw, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers. But the issue we run into with Jordan Clarkson today is his fouls were miserable, his turnovers were worse. It's not the quantity of fouls or the quantity of turnovers. It's the way he sort of like loses the ball or commits a dumb foul every once in a while that it just makes you wonder, like, are you with it today? And there was one where Clarkson just dribbled in the teeth of the defense and just lost the basketball. And it was those types of turnovers are common with him and very frustrating. And when you add just 2 assists on top of that, you're not seeing that distribution effect that you're hoping to get out of Clarkson being that secondary ball handler to a Mike Conley. So I thought he was getting overly frustrated. I thought his 3-point shooting was really, really nice. Defense was not there today, and we couldn't just put his length on De'Aaron Fox to help because he was just fouling. So you're going to look at and he was a team low minus 15 today. I think that's the one box score stat you can look at and say, hey, he didn't have it today. But everything else looks fine, right? You're like 2 rebounds, 3 assists, whatever. 133 defensive rating today for Jordan Clarkson, which would be second worst on the team to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who put up a 137 defensive rating together with a 90 offensive rating. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker with a team low minus 48 net rating, which a minus 48 net rating, that's hard to do if you're trying to be bad. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was just, he's gunning up early threes when he doesn't have an advantage. I thought he was 1 of 4 from 3 today. I thought the one time it went in was like the one time that he actually had some time and space to make a decision. The other times he was kind of shooting it because that's kind of what the ball came to him, and he decided, like, I'm going to shoot this 3. And it wasn't like, if you had a regularly excellent 3-point shooter shooting those shots, a Beasley or a Clarkson shooting those threes, be like, all right, a little bit of a contest is no problem for those guys. Or if the pass isn't quite in the hip pocket to do a nice, easy rise and follow through, doesn't matter with those guys. I want those guys shooting threes. With Alexander Walker, he was kind of getting the ball where it wasn't his preferred spot, or the ball wasn't hitting him quite right, or he was getting a fair contest on these shots, and he's jacking up the threes anyways. And 1 of 4, like I said, 1 of 4 from 3 today. I don't think that's shooting luck. I actually thought all of his attempts were poor except for the one that went in. And his defense, I think his defense is a little bit of a debate among me and Jazz fans. I had a little conversation today, but this is not a unique conversation I've had. Alexander Walker's defense is what he's best at doing, that is better than anyone that we have on the team this year or last year, frankly, is getting through screens. I do think he has a slither to him. Like, he's got this thin, wiry frame with good arms, and he has a try-hard effort that allows him to get through screens. However, he will suddenly decide sometimes to just go under a Kevin Huerter screen. Boom, Kevin Huerter 3. Huerter, after he only played 31 minutes because of a hand injury that he suffered late in the game, but he ends up shooting 6 of 12 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. I thought Huerter had a nice effect, especially in the first half. He was very effective. Alexander Walker is also that Javon Carter style of defense where it's like he's going to make it very difficult for the ball handler for a bit, but set a good screen by a good screen setter like Domantas Sabonis, and all of a sudden the ball handler is off to the races. There are ways to mitigate that style of bulldog defense or frisky defense. Eventually, the play just swings around to a different ball handler, and it's not very, and it doesn't have the ultimate impact effect that you want where he's guarding just a pristine offensive player and he's shutting that guy down, right? Eventually, the best offensive ball handlers do get their shake on a guy like that, right? We saw Davion Mitchell today as a defender for the Kings, who I think has a lot more glue to him. It's very, very hard to dislodge Davion Mitchell. Set as many screens as you want. You're not dislodging him. And frankly, Davion Mitchell's only real flaw defensively right now is guarding bigger players, and he's very, very point guard sized. And you want Nickeil Alexander-Walker at his height to kind of guard a larger variety of players. And so I'm kind of shitting on his defense a little bit, but I come to a grand conclusion of like, he's fine to like kind of bad defensively. I think he's adequate. You want him out there as a point of attack ball defender with the roster that we have on the Jazz, but nobody around the league is looking at his defense going like, that guy's got it defensively. He can shut down Chris Paul's and Devin Booker's and you can play him 30 minutes a night and that'll be useful. You can throw him out there for 15 minutes with high energy and be like, try not to commit so many fouls, right? So I don't see it defensively, except for the try hardness, right? Which is a factor on defense, but eventually that stuff sort of gets filtered out over the course of a 24-second possession. You just can't do that level of stuff the entire way. The way Dan Clayton mentioned it best. He said, he's had moments here and there, but by and large, he's more of an I'm going to slightly annoy you before moving out of the way than a lockdown guy. And I think that's accurate, right? And I don't think that's necessarily an insult to the guy either. It is what it is. He's going to play with Colin Sexton being out for a week as he sort of gets his hamstring back up and at it. He decided to take a week off because his hamstring did not feel as strong as he was hoping to after coming back from injury. Mentioned Jared Vanderbilt having a nice game. I really like it when he's able to lead the break. I think he's a fast player. His finishing at the rim is completely miserable, and you just cannot rely on him to do anything quality offensively except be fast and make a good pass here. Jared Vanderbilt's got a great no-look pass game. That is nice to see sometimes. But it's not something you want to rely on. Malik Beasley, 5 of 12 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3, 16 points, a plus 12. Malik Beasley has had moments, especially early in the season, where his defense was like Nickeil Alexander-Walker level of like, okay, it's fine. It's okay defensively. Today, he was just getting whizzed by on a whole bunch of stuff today. Like he wasn't even there. It was really difficult to keep him on the court, but his three-point shooting is always effective. And over the past few weeks, Beasley has added a very good 2-point game. He's drawing fouls. He had 3 free throws today. I didn't know he really had that in him, but he's really doing great at getting into the teeth of the defense and making tough shots. But it's not like Jordan Clarkson tough shots. Like these are tough shots where he's drawing contact, he's getting into the trees, and eventually when he releases the shot in the paint, he's got good angles to do what he's comfortable with. So he's really had this much more well-rounded scoring game over the past couple weeks than expected. Rudy Gay probably had the weirdest game of his season, which is saying a lot. 0 of 5 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, and when I'm saying his shots weren't even close. And that's where it's like painfully obvious to the casual Jazz fan of like, hey, Rudy Gay sucks. Well, it's because his shots are just nowhere close to hitting the rim. Then he adds three rebounds, 1 wonderful, tough, gritty offensive rebound, and just kind of moves the offense well and plays adequate defense against Kings bench forward rotation that isn't super strong. That includes Trey Lyles and Trey Lyles and KZ Okpala. Like he didn't have the strongest defensive matchups that he needed to put out there, and so his 12 minutes, man. And this is what Rudy Gay does. He finishes a +3. Right. So he's often playing out there in the bench units, and I think Utah does have a strong bench against opponent benches. And so we saw that, especially like I mentioned in the fourth quarter. He gets a bonus on the bench. Kessler gets to go. Oh, excuse me. You get Kessler going up against a Rashawn Holmes instead of DeMontis Bonus. And who's on the court? Rudy Gay. So Rudy Gay has, I think he still leads the Jazz on plus minus and net rating for the season. But Duke can't shoot. His defense is weird. He had a weird traveling call today where he shuffled his feet like 9 times. He had his pivot foot, and he just kept on like sliding his pivot foot, and eventually the ref was like, "Please stop doing that! Please stop doing that!" And he got whistled for the foul. And the last guy we can mention, I'm going to skip over Kelly Olynyk because he had a very typical Kelly Olynyk game of 5 points and 5 fouls in 28 minutes, 1 of 4 from 3, but with 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Right, he has that sort of like glue factor that was there today, but his 5 fouls were. That's what you're going to get against Olynyk versus Sabonis, right? I do want to talk about a little bit more than that is Ochai Agbaji, who played 7 minutes today. He got some rotational minutes early in the first half. He did not play in the second half because the first half defense was so poor against the Kings that eventually Will Hardy said, I got to put somebody out there with a little bit of size to disrupt what Keegan Murray's doing out there, disrupt what Harrison Barnes is doing out there, just provide some level of like wing defense, that because Jared Vanderbilt, while he was having a solid game on the box score, you kind of needed him to play up a position and sort of do what he could guarding Harrison Barnes and Domantas Sabonis. And the guard defense was just quite miserable. So we're putting Ochai Agbaji out there. And based on the rotations at the time Agbaji goes in, there's just nothing to write home about Agbaji's play today. He was an NPC today. 0 of 2 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. Both of his 3-point shot attempts were way off, not very close, and he had one completely boneheaded pass turnover. And otherwise, during his 7 minutes, he's usually not in the action of guarding an immediate player and making a defensive play. So we didn't really get to see Agbaji play active defense. So it's really just like there's nothing to write home about his play today, except that he missed both his threes, right? He's definitely not going to be a force out there. Maybe we'll see a different Agbaji next year, guys. But he's doing this in the G League, too. He goes to the G League, and he's not like this force in the G League, right? He's not, okay, usually when you see these lottery pick or mid-first round rookies who are at the end of the bench and for their pro team, they go down to the G League and they become the guy a little bit, right? Or at least the second guy. Agbaji, he goes and he starts and he plays 35 minutes for the Salt Lake City Stars, but he doesn't like take control of the offense. He's still just roaming around the perimeter, shooting threes for the Stars. And his defense is a struggle. He's fouling out of games in the G League. He's committing turnovers. He's not shooting the ball well. He's not rebounding. He's not passing the ball. So his 7 minutes today in the NBA were nothing to write home about. Absolutely nothing to write home about when it came to Ochai Agbaji today. Happy to see him on the court. He's got the size. I just feel like he's like lost and timid and isn't ready to kind of be out there yet. So hoping we get a little bit more out of him for his future, because it just wasn't there today. So 5th loss in a row. These 5 losses have been a total of 5, 6, 11, 15 points. 5 losses in a row by a total of 15 points. Look, we're playing at the Rockets on Thursday, 6 o'clock Mountain Time game. Should get back up on the ride. The Rockets are a completely miserable team right now. They are 10-27, 6-12 at home. Obviously, riding on Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. They're probably their 2 best players. Kevin Porter Jr. is also a totally fine player, but I do think you're relying on Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün to do the bulk of the damage there as their best players. And hopefully we get a win. Although I'm sure we have many listeners who would prefer otherwise. That's all we got for the Salt City Hoops postcast. Thrilling end as De'Aaron Fox gets the game-winning layup after Lauri Markkanen hits 3 free throws on a foul to tie the game. De'Aaron Fox gets that game-winning layup with 0.4 seconds left to play, and Lauri Markkanen's 2-point shot at the end of regulation was just a tenth of a second short. So the Jazz lose 5 in a row. Their 5th in a row to the Kings. Second loss in a row to the Kings after losing to them on Friday as well by a point. That's the life of a fun Jazz team that loses these close games recently. I'm Mark. Thank you for joining Salt City Hoops Postcast. I will catch